Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a few minutes of fun. No particular plan in mind other than to have a few minutes of fun playing with various mediums. So definitely mixed media today. I've got some paints, some tints, some watercolours, some distress crayons, neocolor aquarelle crayons. I've even got some of my Daniel Smith watercolour sticks, a couple of stencils. I've divided up a piece of fairly cheap, well, it's sort of middling cheap, what I would call mixed media watercolour paper. It's not watercolour paper, but it's great stuff, this gold line pad. And I've divided it up using some standard masking tape that you buy for painting your house. I have used a process similar to this in the past. I'll link to it below so that you can see other variations on this, but different ingredients today, different processes, doing the processes in different orders, so we'll end up with different results, and that's the joy of playing. So I think I'm going to start with a bit of resist embossing. So that's going to be stamping a little bit of, I think, these nice alphabet texts, embossing them with white embossing powder. This is the Wow Bright White. Obviously use what you've got, but I love the Wow Bright White. I think it does a cracking job. I might not do this on a stamping grid. I think this might be just a question of rolling it on and off. Because I'm embossing in white, it doesn't really matter what colour I stamp in. But overall, I think it's probably simpler. Oh, look, it's upside down. Not to worry. It's a background. It's a resist. It's simplest, I'd say, to stamp in something fairly pale so that in case your embossing powder doesn't choose to stick, you're not creating a really dark ink underneath. So apologies for that thought getting interrupted by something else. Oh, look, my masking tape is stuck to my sheet. So now I need to move this powder around and I can't pick it up. I wanted to just be clever and send the same powder over to this bottom corner. Oh, that's a nice ASMR noise for anybody that likes tape peeling up. So let's just tilt that over there. I haven't, of course, got a piece of paper underneath, but I should be able to pick it up on the mat and move it across. There's some left on the masking tape, so that I can just brush off. And of course, the side product of all this is that I'm going to be making nice tapes to use in future projects. So as you can see, I'm nearly at the end of my pot of Wow Bright White, and as a result it has got quite a lot of random particles also going on in there. Nearly at the end of it, so I'm just going to carry on doing that. You can see I'm going to have to brush this off onto some paper. I'm going to carry on doing that, put a little of the lowercase alphabet, I think, onto the other two postcards, heat emboss it, and I'll be back when that's ready to play. There we go. So as you can see, the other advantage to not being entirely random about what ink you use to stamp in is that by having a coordinating colour, if I didn't get the powder on in time, which I didn't in some cases here, partly because watercolour paper is very absorbent, so it sucked in that ink quite quickly. So if you don't get the ink on in a hurry, you will miss your opportunity. And that's because I'm stamping in Archival ink rather than embossing ink. Embossing ink stays sticky. It's a very sticky formulation, which is one of the reasons I don't like using it. Plus it has this really sickly sweet smell. But this is Archival ink, the Distress Speckled Egg that I've put into a custom blend pad. So used a reinker to create that Speckled Egg Archival ink. But as I say, because the watercolour paper is very absorbent, it sucks in that moisture very quickly. Where I didn't get the powder on in time, I've still got a lovely coordinating colour going on underneath. So that's, you know, I'm almost certainly going to stamp some more of that later as a later layer. So that's completely fine by me. Right, I think the next step is probably to put some watercolour onto here. In what I would think of as a sort of mixed media watercolour kind of way, very loosely, very softly, not a kind of spectacularly watercolour brush. I've got my Art to Basic watercolours here, including my own curated green, my very own green that I designed with Meadow from Art to Basic. And yeah, I'm just going to put some washes of this on. Now, as you'll remember from watercolour videos past, sometimes you just need to do a little bit of work to warm up your watercolours. So spritzing on some water, letting that sit. You need to give them a bit of time, like with the Distress pencils, the Distress watercolour pencils. You need to give that paint a little bit of time to make friends with the water. So I'm not going to be very specific about what's going where here. I'm just going to get some paint onto the paper, and you'll see that there are places where it will meet, there we go, the embossed lettering, and off you go with something really rather special as that resist takes hold. I'm keeping things nice and watery so that the paint moves, and yeah, just getting some colour on here. Sort of looking, I've got quite a lot going on top left up there, so I'm going to head for bottom rightish on these two. This is lowercase, this is uppercase. Really, I want a slightly larger brush. This is, with watercolours, they say you should always use the largest brush head possible. So there's my summer leaves going on. That's a slightly more olivey green, thinking about leaves towards the end of the summer. So it won't be the main green in this because it's spring at the moment. I'm just dipping in water off here. That's the noise you can hear going on. And so into this, I think we're going to drop a little bit of springtime blue. And I might even go so far as to pop in some Distress inks, I think. So a little bit of the blues here from this side of the palette. I'm allowing these to get messy. A watercolour palette should be playable with, not panicking the whole time about cross-contamination. You can always wipe and clean it afterwards. So I'm sort of mixing the colours right there in the palette. I could come down here and do it all very preciously, but for today, I just want to play. I don't want to think too hard. I just want to get some colour onto my postcards and then let the next things start to happen. Yeah, so I'm taking it, I should be taking it over onto the tape as well, shouldn't I? Although the watercolour is not going to be the best thing on the tape. The good thing on the tape is going to be when we get some acrylics involved, because they'll take on the tape. But we might as well get that first layer playing nice games. And I think we might just put a little bit of... So it's springtime palette, I can't help it. This is what my soul wants at the moment. Oh, look, that's a lovely rich kind of aqua turquoise. And what I might do is a little bit of spattering with that, I think. Let's get some on down there. So obviously, the darker the colour you use, the better your white resist embossing is going to show up, and that's what's happening down there. I'm going to do one last little bit up here. Yeah, if I had a bigger brush, this would all be more satisfactory. But I'm not going to stop and look for one right now. As I say, I'm playing, having fun. I want to move this around. I want to make sure I haven't got too many jagged edges. So I'm just going to get some more water onto here. I'm going to do a little bit of spatter with that and let it just move in the paint that's already there. Let that sit and just move around a little bit. And where I feel like there's too much going on, I might pull a bit back. So there's a big puddle of water here because I'm not quite flat on the thing. I'm going to pull that spatter back a little bit because the pattern of it is a bit too much at the moment. So that's a first little watercolour layer. And as I said, I'm quite tempted by maybe a little bit of Distress Oxide into this mix. The watercolours, as you know, are beautifully translucent, and oxide is going to be a little bit chalkier. So that's a little bit of salvaged patina. And I'll use my usual spatter brush. I think that was one of the other problems with that spatter. So getting a little bit of water onto there, and let's take that in. So that's just going to be a slightly different quality of spatter. It's going to mix and meld with the watercolours, and you'll get what you get. It really is a question of not being too... not having expectations. I think that's one of the keys with playing, is to just allow what happens to happen, and then work from what you then see, as opposed to kind of going, oh, I want X effect, and then being cross when X doesn't happen. So I'm just taking a little bit more of the dark paint over some of that embossing, the upside down embossing there. Unfortunately, that's all rather pleasing, I think. That's just, yeah, I'm going to pick up dark embossing, dark paint over the white embossing where I can kind of still do that. So allowing that to dry will give you one kind of effect. If you heat dry it, you will pause those processes. So the pigment will continue to spread out in the water if you let it just do that while let it just dry. Things will continue to happen. If you dry it, you will stop those processes and pause it in process. So you have a choice between allowing it to dry and carrying on. And while it's still a bit wet, I think I might want to drag a little bit of watercolour crayon through it. So I've got these Neocolor aquarelles in various colours. What's this? Payne's Grey. Well, maybe a bit of grey squiggle, maybe a bit of brown squiggle. I've got sepia. Yeah, maybe we'll do a little bit of... And I'm going to just try and be a little bit organic about that shaping. So a little dance of the crayon across what's already here. And because the paint is wet in the background, and because these are watercolour crayons, they're going to, again, just maybe soften in that water. And if they're not softening enough, I'm going to take some across the middle because I want it on my tape as well. I must remember to go to the edges so that I'm creating tape as well. And then if I want to soften that a little further, I can apply water to it and even get a finger in there. So it's just to create a little bit of texture, a little bit of movement within what's already happening. And the thing with a mixed media process like this is just play. It's a chance to explore and a chance to discover things about what you've got. And we're making backgrounds. So if something happens that you hate, you can always come in later with some collaging or some stamping that will distract attention from the things that you're not enjoying. So my feeling is that I want to dry that so that I can now add a layer maybe of stenciling and stamping to what's going on those grids. But they've got a freshness to them at the moment that I'm really quite enjoying, and I quite like those sepia explorations. So I'm going to dry this and then maybe come in with a stencil. Back in a sec. So I've zoomed in a little bit so you can get a slightly better look at what's going on here. And because it's springtime, I'm in green mode. I can't get enough of spring greens. So I've got on the mat here some Hey Pesto, Granny Smith, Teresa Green, Seaglass, Teresa Green. And yeah, I thought I'd use this small version of the Tim Holtz palette stencil. It does come in the large size as well, which I have used previously in a swatching video, and I just thought I'd quite like some random sponging going on over these. So this is mostly opaque. Hey Pesto's semi-opaque, but I'm just going to quite loosely go from the lighter to the darker and just let that be a bit of a green ombre across that side of there. Yeah, I like that. Because it's quite loose, the lines are not completely perfect, but that's all good. It's all good. So let's go in dark. And I've now got mixed colours on the sponges, so I'm getting all kinds of things going on. I'm going to have to go in and kind of rescue dark at one end and light at the other. But at the moment, I just like the sort of the random appearance. I'm going to come in just on the corner, I think, in this direction. And let's start with Seaglass and go Hey Pesto at this end. So this is because I've got quite a lot of paint on here that we're losing some of the definition, but I like what's happening. So for this one, I do want to put a bit more Hey Pesto in. Working with acrylic paint, if you're working with an opaque paint, that is going to cover up the background resist, but one can always come back and do a little bit more white embossing if you feel like you want some going on. So given I'm going in a very loose ombre here, I think I'm going to leave Teresa Green out of the mix this time and just go from Hey Pesto to Granny Smith to Seaglass. I do love Seaglass. Might be one of my favourite paint colours ever. So I'm going to pop that back on. See if I can mostly line it up. Put a little bit more Hey Pesto in this end of it. Oh, and of course I do want to go onto the tape. A little bit more Hey Pesto at that end. So now I'm going to reverse the sponge so that I can get a proper version of Seaglass at the top end. There we go. That's better. So I might do the same down here. Come back in with that. Pick up some Hey Pesto to go at this end. So I've got a proper dark end. Turn the sponge around, pick up some Seaglass for this end. There we go. Ah, there you are, you see. And so we're left, right, bottom, top. And do we just want to do a corner, or do we want a bit more? Sort of a 3/4. Let's go. Let's get that up there. Oh look, I need some more. More paint. Out you come. And a bit more Seaglass. I've always got another bottle of Seaglass ready to go. I never want to run out of Seaglass. So let's go from dark at this side via a little bit of the Granny Smith in the middle. I'm sort of using the other corner of the sponge for that, then turn around, pick up the Seaglass to come through this final end, and then I'm just going to go back over, just so I'm just creating that ombre again. There we go. Oh, that's my favourite. Look at that. That one's a beauty. I like that a lot. I might go in with a bit more Seaglass up here, I think. Let's line that up. Because I love Seaglass. There's no escaping it. And I might just define the dark a little further down at this end. And that's just giving me, yeah, my nice kind of green palette. Yeah, enjoying that. It's always enjoyable when you look at a thing that just gives you pleasure. Nice. So that's just giving me a little bit of geometric structure, I guess, within what was a very random organic look. We've now got something which is giving us a bit of organic shaping. I think it might be time for a little bit of white stenciling. So I need to largely get rid of paint that's already on that sponge, so I'm just going to wipe it in this paper towel. Oh, I might even go with a bit of texture paste. Could be texture paste. Maybe some stamping first. Maybe it's some stamping first. And what do I want in terms of stamps? I think maybe I want some stems. Maybe it's umbellifers and things like that. Back in a sec. Of course, what I should have done with what was left on the mat was a little bit of, yeah, there we are, spatter, so that it's linking the colours that we've got stenciled there into the rest of the panel. Good. Okay, now I'm going to go and look for stamps. I just wiped what was on the lids of the paint pots onto the mat to get a little bit of that spatter going across. Now I'm looking for stamps. Here we go. So a couple of options. I've got my pressed Umbels, a couple of umbellifers there. I've got my winter grasses, and I've got some pressed grasses. So I think all of those are going to be nice. And I also thought what I want is some detail stamping from these. So as well as restamping some of this alphabet, I think, in a colour, I think I quite fancy, in fact, I might. No, let's start with some stems. I'm going to start with some grassy stems because I'm in a grassy kind of a mood. So these, you get a sort of silhouette one and a sketchy one. I think I want to start with the silhouette. And I'm going to stamp in a lovely fresh spring kind of green, which is this lovely Wendy Vecchi leaf green. And it has a kind of kick to it, which I like a lot. And I'm going to try to remember to stamp on the masking tape as well. Oh, look, that's my not clean back of stamp, not adhering fully to the acrylic block. So cleaning the fronts of stamps. If you're stamping in paint, yes, clean your stamp immediately because you don't want paint drying on here. If it's ink, not so much. And what you've got on the front is rarely going to affect what goes on in terms of stamping. Inks are not going to destroy your stamp's ability to stamp. But if you get the backs of your stamps mucky, then they do become reluctant to stick, as you saw, to the grid block. So a little bit of cleaning of the back of the stamp can often be a useful thing. Good. I love that already. And because I love it so much, I'm going to go straight up the middle of this bit of masking tape here so that I've got some right on the masking tape to start with. And then I'm going to take it across a bit of this. What I don't want is stems coming down into the sky down here. So what I'm just going to keep a little lookout for is, as I stamp up here, I'm going to cover the panel down here. Not the masking tape, because I'm very happy for it to stamp on the masking tape. But I am going to cover that panel so that I don't get the bottom of a grassy stem in the middle of the sky here, which, you know, I mean, yes, okay, abstract, could be fun, but it's not what I want. It's not what I want for these particular panels. I'm going to take some up here. And I'm going to take some somewhere down here, obviously, because there's nothing here yet. Let's go left, let's go right. There we go. And another one of those, maybe stamped taller towards the centre. I very often stamp tall at the edge and then kind of descend into the centre. But I think maybe for once, I want that coming up. I think I might want a little bit up here. So again, I'm keeping an eye on what else is happening. So again, I don't want stems coming down onto this panel, although I'm very happy to have them all over the masking tape. And there we go. And then it might just want a little bit down here, I think. So as you can see, that this whole process is just sort of watching, looking to see where and how you want details arriving. I like that a lot. I'm quite tempted to stamp the next one in a bluish colour. Maybe Beach Cruiser, maybe a full-on night. So I've got, yeah, lovely colours. Night Sky, Beach Cruiser. This is another Wendy Vecchi. I think there might be some grasses doing that. Or Umbels. Let's, ooh, it's a tough choice. Ooh, I know. Let's have the little tiny grasses. Maybe in Night Sky in the sort of foreground. Or maybe they should be little ones in the background. They could be a long way away, or they could be just little tiny grasses. I think I'm going to take those in the Beach Cruiser. And just give myself a little bit of detail along the bottom here. Oh, I need to colour the whole thing so that I get some stems on my masking tape. I had only inked up the very top, thinking I didn't need it, but obviously I do need it because I want it. Also, oh, I love that. I'm going to take some up the side here too, just with that kind of layering. Let's go over here. So Beach Cruiser is a fairly recent addition for me to my craft stash, but I'm so happy I yielded to it. I saw it and I thought, that's a lovely colour, I thought, and I was right. It's a great one to have around for just a little bit of detail stamping without being too in your face. I think I do want a little bit going on here, one each side. There we go. And then just a little bit down here. So at the moment, as you're looking at this, do bear in mind that the messiness of it is partly because you've still got all this masking tape here. When the masking tape goes, suddenly everything's going to look a lot neater because you'll get back your white space. At the moment, all these layers are kind of overlapping and in your face. But as you peel away, the magic peel away, you suddenly retrieve a lot of open space, and it sets off the stamping that you've got going on, so that you suddenly go, ah, oh, now I understand what all that was about. So there's a certain level of patience and a certain level of faith that you have to have when you're engaged in a process like this. I'm enjoying that quite a lot. Quite a lot. Layered colours, geometric shapes, organic shapes, natural shapes. The balancing act of that is quite pleasing to me. I sort of want a little bit more text, is the feeling I'm getting at the moment. I think we are going to have some embellishes, probably. Not a given yet. But what I do also want are some of these little wordy things, because they have a way of, I don't know, tickling the eye. Gonna go, I think, with a brown. Gonna go, this is potting soil, I think, is it? Oh no, it's the ground espresso. So again, this is a Distress ink formulation that I have created myself. So this is almost a subliminal layer, and yes, I'm deliberately stamping onto the masking tape in places. So this is just creating, again, a little tickly detail for the eye, something that will just wake up. Where are we going to go with this? Yeah, I like that. Let's see. Want a nice number. Maybe this. And again, I'm going to stick to this ground espresso. I think actually this needs re-inking. Maybe that's something I should do so that you can see it happen. Going more numbers. More numbers. That way. that way. More numbers. Where does it want to go over here? I think it wants to go here. And where does it? We've already got it there, got it there, got it there, got it there. Good. So I'll just stamp a couple onto the masking tape, because why not? Good, good. You never know. I may or I may not use the masking tape in the long run. But at the moment, particularly this bit is making me rather happy. Good. Let's see what else. I think maybe it might be a brown umbellifer. Let me have a look at that on the page so that I can see how it tickles my fancy. So again, there's the silhouette version coloured in, and there's a really detailed sketchy version. And the way I have to tell them apart is the sketchy version, the stems cross, the non-sketchy version comes apart. I think we might want the sketchy version. And she says, reaching for the silhouette. I don't know, because there's quite a lot going on in that background, so it might take the silhouette to really, maybe we do silhouette on some and the other on the other. This, I think we want quite a present ink. I'm thinking maybe something like olive. Maybe it's a combination of olive and night sky. So yeah, I'm going to take olive up the stems, and then let's combine beach cruiser. So a first go with the beach cruiser, then a little bit of night sky just dotted. So I'm just using kind of the corner of the pad to just apply ink in various places. I'm going to cover up again down here because I don't want to end up with stems floating in the middle of the sky. And I'm going to go like that. And I don't know until I do it whether I'm going to love it or hate. I'm probably not going to hate it, to be fair. There we are. Yeah, we're talking wild meadows here, definitely, no question. And I'm going to stick with that inking. So that's olive going up the stems, beach cruiser across the top, and then just some little dottings of night sky in places to just maybe highlight either the center of that stem or the flowers. Over here, I think we're going to come from this side, of course, and we might go a little taller. There we go. Oh, nice. Nice, nice, nice. From here, we're going to come down in this corner. Olive coming up the stems. Beach cruiser across the face of the flower. And again, just a little night sky to add variation. Where did we say? This side. Maybe leaning that way. And I am going to take a couple of these flower heads and just stamp direct onto the masking tape afterwards as well, I think. Oh, that's making me happy. Ah, spring. There's a real feel of spring in the air out there again today. We had glorious spring weather through quite a lot of March. Warm for here, middle of nowhere in the Czech Republic, definitely unexpectedly warm. And then the temperatures plunged again. Really, really cold, heavy overnight frosts. So just as well I hadn't got around to planting anything or doing anything very much in the garden yet. But yesterday I was able to repot some roses and start lots of those summer processes. I haven't planted any seeds yet. That's the next task. I'm enjoying that more than might be healthy. So yes, again, just in order not to have things showing up where you might not want them on the grids, I'm just going to do a little bit of masking tape stamping. I think some of this is going to be really pretty masking tape. Oh, I hate to blow my own trumpet. This is a pretty stamp. When I was drawing it, I sort of didn't really know what I was doing. I just set off onto this little scribbly umble, and it's ended up being one of my favourite stamps ever. I do love it. I do. So let's just put a little bit down here as well. Beach Cruiser is really an amazing colour, isn't it? I like it a lot. Turquoise is a really uplifting colour. I think in colour theory terms, it's colour analysis terms, it's one of those colours which is full of positivity, and I think I definitely get a feel of that in springtime, kind of sense of spring delights. I'm going to do some deliberate masking tape stamping again along here, because I think it will just be nice to have a bit of green going on up there as well. So let's grab you again, leaf green again, and it doesn't need to be on the grid block. I'm just gonna do a little bit of, again, I don't want stems in the middle of my sky, so I am just going to protect a little bit. There are places where I don't mind so much, but there are other places where it would bother me now, I think, to have that. Grand. Okay, I'm feeling the urge for a bit of white spatter. Definitely feeling the urge for a bit of white spatter. And then I think I might be at peeling time. And at the moment, I don't know that these want anything else. I was thinking of them as backgrounds for maybe some collaging, but I'm enjoying them so much that I think I'm going to need to see them now to know if I even really do want to do anything else. So I'm going to remove a little bit of paint because I don't want quite that much going on. So pollen, sparkling light in the air, the dance of motes of dust in the sunlight. In winter, this is frost and snow, of course. In spring, this is light dancing across whatever it is you've been creating. At least that's what it is for me. And those final moments of sort of random movement and life are something I really enjoy. I'm looking at the Umbels and thinking maybe I want to intensify their appearance with a little bit of white paint. I'll see. I could do little dots of white pen into each of those little areas, but I think, no, again, I think I need to see it before I embark on anything that detailed. So I'm just going to give this a quick little dry. And also somebody gave me the tip that just slightly heating the masking tape is a good way to help it peel up without peeling away the paint. So we'll experiment with that as well. Back in a sec. So I've just turned off the heat tool, and I'm going to see what happens if I start to peel back. So the other recommendation I have is, rather than pulling straight up and away from the paper, is if you sort of double back on yourself. It's another way to just help the masking tape come away. So that's an okay piece. It's all right. It's all right. Can't remember what order I put these on in. It's usually quite helpful if you can find the one that's over the surface. There we go. So magic peel back along this side, pulling back on itself, so doubling back to just help not put pressure on that paper as I peel it away. That's another nice piece. Let's just stick it down so it doesn't peel up. I think I probably came along the bottom and top next. Yes, because I put the cross on in the middle first. So peeling away. And as I'm doing this, can you see how suddenly those neat edges are revealing the beauty of what's underneath? So something that looked really messy and full on and kind of all over the place is suddenly getting a little bit of rhyme and reason and simplicity and beauty. Oh, that's a good one. I'm glad I did that extra stamping along the top. So although accidental masking tape is a wonderful thing, there's no reason you can't help it along. Did I go top and then bottom? Yeah, I think the first one was that one, so I think this should be the next. So the masking tape, I've gone full thickness across the middle, as you can see. So the full width of the masking tape. Oh, don't curl up. Oh, that's magic with the... Yeah. So these are going to be great in a journal page, just to kick things off, stop that blank page syndrome. So what was I saying? Yes, so full thickness masking tape across these middle bits. Half thickness around the edge, so you'll see I positioned it so that half the masking tape was on, half the masking tape was off. Partly that helps if you want to glue down your page to the mat behind, but also when I now come to cut these apart, this full width in the middle is going to become the same width as half, because each of these is double. If that was clear as mud, you'll see what happens when I cut it. That's another good one. That's another good one. That's gorgeous. So that soft watercolour in the background has made a difference. You can see where it hits blank masking tape, but there is a difference between the two. So let's get the big shears out. I could take this to the guillotine, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna eyeball it kind of between the two panels, halfway up the middle. And the joy of the long shears is that you've got half the job done by the time you've done one snip. Eyeballing kind of midway between those two. I'll probably trim down a little bit more, to be honest, because that's quite a wide border. This is new masking tape and it's a little bit wider than the one I was using before, so I'm used to a narrower margin. So I either have to get my eyes used to this new one, or I just trim it down a little bit further. Oh, yeah, I'm happy. I'm pretty happy. Pretty happy with what I've got. I think there might be just a little bit more text stamping to be done, maybe. Or maybe it's just about some word stickers now. I am going to trim these down a bit. It's too wide for my eye. I'm going to take it to a little bit less. And now you're watching me cut pieces of paper. Even that can be enjoyable though, right? So I'm going to persevere through this one because I just want to show you the difference in terms of the size of the border. Yeah. If this was on a card, then fine. But I think it might be going to go into a journaling page or some other thing. So I'm going to trim the rest of them and maybe dig out some word stickers. Back in a sec. I do like the narrower margin. As I say, that's partly, at least partly, because of what my eye is used to with having had the slightly narrower masking tape in the past. I just thought I wanted some round stamping. So I've got a little postmark here from that same set. And I'm just adding that in a couple of places. I think I quite like this one where all the text is attached. That's sort of one full corner of text stamping going on there. Let's have you up there, maybe two of you in fact, like so. And let's put a little bit of you down here. So there are sort of moments on here that I really love, like this white embossing just showing through in various places. Just that lovely sort of first layer, almost subliminal on some of them. Even the upside down one. I'm even fine with the upside down one. And yes, I think that's obviously preference. So if you want to keep a wider margin, absolutely do. For me, that just gives me the right amount of joy. I didn't, as I had said I was going to, fish out my word stickers yet, but I think it's going to be the small talk stickers. I just want to make nice things. Well, I do. I don't really want to say that sort of up front here. Hold on tight to your dreams. I think that's a good one. Live, create, tell the story. Very me. So I think that might be a good one. Let's maybe take that up there. Don't know. Just popping things down at the moment, just to see. Not all who wander are lost. There's something very beautiful to me about that statement. Maybe it wants to emerge out of the darkness there on the side. Ooh, so maybe this one actually wants to happen. Come out. Down here with Create, Tell the Story. Hold on tight to your dreams. Hold tight and pretend it's a plan. Yeah, maybe. Look on the bright side. Maybe. Good things are going to happen. Not definitely. Hopefully. There is beauty in simplicity. If you keep looking, sooner or later, the one you want pops to your eye. There is beauty in simplicity. So that, I think, there. That's not quite in the right place, I think. How's that to my eye? One up, one down. Two left, two right. Do we want to send you a little further up? Just so there's another one going up. Not all the way up. Oh, not there. That was definitely not right. Halfway up. How's that look? No, a little bit further down. So at this point, don't want to cover up these white letters, don't want to cover up that, but it just looked wrong. So there was a sort of practicality to that, but also a definite. I just want to have a look at this one down here and see if that's maybe better. Not so far up, but again, I don't really want to cover up this lovely quarter circle of paint. So I think that probably is up there. Yes, and I might just do a little bit of surrounding those with a tiny bit of pen work, and then I'll dive in for a close-up. I hope you've enjoyed that little bit of mixed media playtime and that transformation from a whole lot of mixed media mess to something neater and quieter and calmer. Calmer, I guess that's the thing from all the noise, but your side product is also a treat with all those delicious tapes ready to be used in a journal page, on a card, on a tag, to just avoid that blank page syndrome. Thanks so much for your company today. If you've enjoyed that, do give me a thumbs up. Leave any comments or questions down below. It's always a joy to interact with you. And I'll try to link to anything relevant in the description below the video. Thanks so much for your company, and happy crafting all.